team, it's your boy D Neal back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with USA versus Germany prisons, a shocking look behind bars part 2. In the first part, it was absolutely insane to me how different these prisons were, where it seemed one just focused on locking you up and throw away the key, and the other actually focused on rehabilitation. One focused on locking you up, stricter laws, stricter policies for the same crimes that were committed in the past, but the sentencing and everything just got much stricter. Whereas over here, they don't want to keep you in jail for life. They don't want to keep you in jail for a long time. They want to help rehabilitate you. They want to still give you a certain amount of freedom here. And so it seems like one is setting you up for life outside of prison and trying to help you learn, I guess. Not learn in a sense, but just it's more of a program to help set you up for how life to help you with life outside of prison. Whereas one system, I feel like, is setting you up to come back. They're not giving you any skills. They're not doing anything. They're basically setting you up to come back. And so it's very interesting. I know I completely butchered a part of that. I'm sorry. But we're going to go ahead and jump into it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Ring notification bell. Get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. What we got?
And what their life's going to be like afterwards. But in Germany, consistent with the principle of normalization, offenders who serve time in prison are not stripped of their rights as members of society. For example, prisoners in Germany retain their right to vote and often receive certain social welfare benefits. They also don't suffer the collateral consequences of conviction that befalls so many offenders in the United States after release, such as restrictions on housing and professional licensing, limited access to social benefits, and suspended driver's licenses. They're also given opportunities to spend time outside of prison while they're still serving time. Because in Germany, recognizing that strong family and community connections are associated with successful reentry outcomes, corrections officials routinely award prisoners short-term and extended home leave visits to visit with family, to search for work or accommodation for after their release.
Bro, shout out Germany, bro. Shout out Germany, bro. I know Germany and USA are two completely different places. So something that might work here might not work here. Completely understand it. But shout out Germany, because it seems like they're doing amazing with crime compared to over here. And they treat these prisoners like they're still humans. You know what I'm saying?
Strikingly, the failure rate from home leave, which is the failure for that prisoner to actually return, amounts to a mere 1%.
Wow.
And many prisoners consider denial of leave as more severe of a sanction than detention in solitary confinement.
Oh, I bet. Wow. Tenfold increase.
One of my all-time favorite movies is The Shawshank Redemption. It's one of the greatest movies ever made, in my opinion.
It's great.
But to be honest, it also paints a picture of U.S. prison life that isn't really largely the case today. Namely, that U.S. prison workers are being exploited for private sector jobs. Because in reality, only about 5,000 people in prison, less than 1%, are employed by private companies through the federal PIECP program, which requires them to pay at least minimum wage before deductions. In fact, a larger portion of work occurs for state-owned correctional industries, where you're doing things like making license plates, which, by the way, it's actually estimated that 80% of the license plates in the US are produced in prisons. So that's something. But it should be noted that these jobs do pay much less than the private sector jobs. But again, honestly, like even in these correctional industries, it really only represents about 6% of the people incarcerated in state prisons.
Really?
So what about the other 90+% of people who are actually required to have a job while in the prison system? Well, in the United States, prisons usually rely on the labor of incarcerated people for food service, laundry, and other daily operations. But they pay incarcerated workers unconscionably low wages.
Crazy.
A 2017 study by the Prison Policy Initiative found that on average, incarcerated people earn between 86 cents and $3.45
Insane.
per day for.
Then there you are. And there you are, the reason I personally feel like we have so many people in prison. Because you get next to free labor out of them. No, the more people in prison, the more profits goes into the pockets of these prisons. That goes into the pockets of the people that own these prisons. I'm sure a lot of people agree with me, and I'm sure there's people that disagree with me, but come on, you're paying. That's so inhumane to pay these people that work so much and make that in a day. That's sick.
Most common prison jobs. In at least 5 states, those jobs pay nothing at all.
Wow.
And again, work in prison is compulsory, and incarcerated workers have few rights and protections. And what's quite shocking is that those next to nothing wages they receive often go right back to the prison, which charges them for basic necessities like medical visits and hygiene items.
Are you serious?
Now, here in Germany, similar to the US, most prisoners do work. In fact, they're actually required to work in 12 of Germany's 16 states. But they have a much wider range of jobs and bigger differences in pay and benefits. So whether you're working in the prison kitchen, in a carpentry workshop, or screwing together components for locksmiths, the average prisoner in Germany earns between 1 to 3 euros an hour. Now, don't get me wrong, this is still very much below minimum wage.
Very
but the
much.
average German prisoner earns more in 1 hour than the American prisoner earns for an entire day's worth of work.
That's
Plus,
crazy.
German prisoners get to keep their money, and the German prison system pays for things like unemployment insurance and covers their healthcare costs.
Oh, wow.
But I do want to be fair. It's not always 100% rosy in Germany. The money prisoners do earn is usually spent on personal hygiene products like deodorant, shampoo, razors, or telephone calls. Or they'll buy extra things like fruit and yogurt and mineral water from the prison commissary. And actually, an investigation recently found that prison prices are actually significantly higher than the average German supermarket. Even though facilities are obligated to enable prisoners to buy food at standard market rates. Now, the counter argument that I expect to probably find in the comment section is going to be that, like, well, yeah, why should we pay these guys a fair working wage? I mean, they're getting their housing for free, they're getting their food for free, and they committed a crime. It's not supposed to be a cushy life behind bars. Which is true, but here are some things just to kind of consider.
Because when you put it like that, I can see where that side is coming from. So I'm intrigued to hear what she has to say. But I still, I know it's much worse here in America. It's crazy, but yeah, I feel like, I don't know, hygiene shouldn't have to be something you pay for. But I do feel like even if you're free and you're making minimum wage on the outside, like having to pay for housing and all that stuff, I feel it almost equal out to the same, because you're basically just working to survive, especially on minimum wage. If you could even survive, I don't think you could survive on minimum wage, but you're basically just working to survive. You're not getting ahead. You're not. But I mean, the difference is your freedom, I guess. I'm intrigued to hear what she has to say, though.
Prisons don't make a profit from the inmates' work. It is important to note that many people who enter the prison system were already in debt when they got there. And so when they get out, they usually actually have even more debt thanks to all of that interest that was accruing while they were behind bars. And because prison work doesn't actually count towards a pension, there's a real risk of old age poverty if you serve out a long sentence, whether in the United States or here in Germany. In fact, a recent study by the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics found that more than 50,000 people released from federal prisons in 2010, a staggering 33% of them found no employment at all over the 4 years post-release. And at any given time, no more than 40% of the cohort was employed. People who did find jobs also struggled. Formerly incarcerated people in the sample had an average of 3.4 jobs throughout the 4-year study period, suggesting that they were landing jobs that didn't offer security or opportunities for upward mobility.
Juvenile detention.
So here's something you might not know about the American prison system. About 1 out of every 5 people entering prison gates are young adults, and they have the worst outcomes. Racial disparities in prison rolls for this group exceeds even the outrageous disparities that already plague U.S. incarceration rates overall. But in Germany, as you can imagine, things look a lot different for young adults. So there's actually a place that we've talked about earlier in Mecklenburg, Western Pomerania, called Neustrelitz Prison, which is considered actually a juvenile facility. But whereas in the US, the word juvenile usually refers to those under the age of 18, here at Neustrelitz Prison, the 150 men and women are almost all between the age of 19 and 25. And this difference in age demographic is largely due to the fact that here in Germany, it is hard to find a young adult in prison at all. Period. Throughout Europe, juvenile sentencing laws cover people until they're at least 18. In Germany, it's actually 21, and there's currently a political debate underway about extending the juvenile law to cover men and women up to the age of 24. And
Dang, to 20, dang! I guess that's around the time, if you think about college, going to college 4 or 5 years. Because while I was in college, I was on my own. I was an adult, but I wasn't an adult at the same time. You feel me? Because I didn't really have responsibilities. I didn't feel like I just had to pass school. I didn't get any money from my parents while I was in college, but I did get financial aid, which I'm still in debt from. Which I'll be in debt from for a long time. But yeah, I don't know. I did work and everything. I did like have to pay bills and stuff, but I just felt like a lot less responsibility than I do right now, because I can make a lot of stupid choices and like I can do a lot of dumb things. So I guess I still was in more of a young adult mind frame than now, if that makes sense. So 24. I can see some people saying, that's a little too old for juvenile, but I can understand. You know what I'm saying? I can understand the mindset that a lot of young people have at 24.
Youth under the age of 14 are not considered criminally responsible. And in the vast majority of situations involving juveniles and young adults, there's a considerable effort made to avoid putting them in prison and instead imposing things like fines or doing things like public sanctions and community service. So you'll commonly see discipline that's geared towards reparations for the injury, apologies to the injured party, payment of money to charitable organizations or the state and community service. But if the crime they commit in Germany is serious enough to warrant punishment, there are huge differences in sentencing from a young adult to someone who might be entering the adult prison system. The length of the period is usually limited to between 6 months and 5 years. For serious crimes, you can find up to 10 years. And if a young adult commits a crime with the provision of a lifelong imprisonment in the general criminal law, the maximum prison sentence that they would receive as a juvenile is a 15-year term.
God dang.
So while under the juvenile law, young people can technically receive up to 15 years, to be honest, they rarely do.
Yeah, I can
Fewer
imagine.
than 1% receive sentences of 5 to 10 years. Fewer than 5% receive sentences of between 3 and 5 years. Plus, Germany makes a huge effort to keep juvenile and young adult offenders away from the adult prison population. And that's largely because there's a widespread recognition that young brains are different. They're less mentally culpable for their crimes. They're usually also more open to rehabilitation, and also more vulnerable to exploitation in the culture of the prison. So here's the fascinating part. In the unlikely scenario where you do have someone sentenced as a juvenile with a lengthier sentence due to the seriousness of their crime, that person will stay in the juvenile facility until they're 24 or 25 years old. And this combination of factors essentially pushes the entire German youth system upward to be more of an older, young adult system, with younger youth either diverted or handled by lighter touches administered by social services. Now, to be fair, in some US states, juveniles or young adults who commit a crime can actually stay in juvie until their mid-20s as well. But this isn't nationwide. There are a handful of states where 16 and 17-year-olds are regularly placed into adult facilities.
That's crazy.
And in all 50 states, there are transfer laws that allow a
16, 17, yeah, you shouldn't be in the adult facilities. You should not be in an adult facility.
Require young offenders to be prosecuted as adults for more serious offenses, regardless of how old they are. But I actually do want to go back to Neustrelitz prison because there's actually some really fascinating things happening here in terms of rehabilitation for young adults. The inmates held at this prison are typically men and women who have committed more serious crimes, more than half of them violent. So the architecture of this environment still looks a lot like American juvie. You're going to find surveillance cameras, blue sweatsuit uniforms, steel reinforced bars over windows, and tall white walls toppled by spools of razor wire. But there are some pretty notable differences. Each room at Neustrelitz has a large window with bars, but that window opens. There's actually a law in Germany that dictates how much natural light has to come into a prisoner's room. But there are rugs and decorative lamps and flowers. And each prisoner has his or her own toilet with a door for privacy. Plus, in Germany, administrators also emphasize therapy. For example, they use bunny rabbits as part of animal therapy along with horses, sheep, and goats. And offer pretty extensive counseling and mental health services by American standards. They even have their own vineyard and learn how to make wine that they can then give as gifts to their family members or friends who come to visit them. In short, the German system's educational and rehabilitative ethics hold true when youth are incarcerated. According to Germany's youth...
The juveniles out here living like me. They got a nice little room. You got the sunlight coming in. You got your own bathroom. You go out. You work for a certain time of the day. They get to work with bunnies and goats and things as that. They get to learn how to make wine, give gifts to give that to their family. Shoot. Yeah, I feel like that's nice. For them to still, I feel like that's still treating them as humans, and that's very helpful. Into where I think she was showing the Khalif case, 2 years is awaiting sentencing for a stolen backpack. Like, that's sick.
Ethics hold true when youth are incarcerated. According to Germany's youth courts law, when a youth is confined, it should, quote, arouse the youth's sense of self-respect, be structured in an educational manner, and help these youth to overcome the difficulties which contributed to his or her commission of the criminal offense in the first place. So here at Neustrelitz, you're going to find robust vocational programming, such as professional woodworking, metalworking, culinary instruction, and farming, which include award-winning rabbit husbandry, by the way.
So cool.
And all of these jobs pay minimum wage. And when you've served your time, the prison will actually help you to find a job and housing so that you have a more secure life post-release. And the effects of this kind of prison system are robust. Only about 30% of German juveniles and young adults come back to prison within 3 years. 70% of them don't.
That's great.
All right, guys, so that actually wraps up our video today on the prison system. But if you happen to miss part 1 or 2 of our series on crime, I'm going to include the links down below in the description of this video, where you can see our videos discussing differences between crime rates, as well as gun control legislation at lots of different countries around the world. So be sure to check those out if you haven't already done so. And as always, if you enjoyed what you saw today, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And for more content from the Black Forest family, hit that subscribe button. So I'll see you next Sunday. Cheers!
Shout out to Black Forest family. Absolutely love the video. And if you guys would like me to react to any of those videos on the crime series, y'all let me know in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Social media, Patreon, all up top. You know, subscribe to any of it. Put all the links in the description. All you gotta do is hit the link, follow them, talk to them. Love talking to you guys. You guys are the most incredible team on YouTube. It's your boy Neal. Out.